today we're going to talk about EE1, where we're going to use exponents, and we're going to really break it down. I know we used exponents in elementary school, but we're really going to look at them and understand what they are and how we're going to use them. But before we get started, we need to understand a few vocabulary words. So we have 4 to the second power here. The 4 is what we call a base. It is the number that's going to be multiplied over and over and over, okay? The exponent is how many times you're going to multiply that base. So the exponent is really telling the base how many times to multiply to itself. Now, we also call this 4 squared because in geometry, when we are finding the area of a square, here we would do, my pen messed up, but here we would do 4 times 4 because you would be saying length times width, okay? Because when you have a square, all sides are the same. So we could say 4 to the second power, but we can also call this 4 squared, which is going to be 4 times 4, which is 16. So we could also say simply 4 squared is 16. Now let's take a second and look at a to the third problem, which is what we call a cube, okay? So we're going to say 5 to the third. I did that backwards. 5 to the third means 5 is our base. It is the number that's going to be multiplied to itself repetitively. The 3 tells us how many times to multiply that 5 to itself. So we have 5 times 5 times 5 times 5, which is going to be 125. We could also write that in exponential form using 5 to the third power is 125. We also can call this 5 cubed like we did earlier. In geometry, we have cubes, and when we are finding the volume of a cube, we would do length times width times height. If it's a cube, all sides are the same. So that means the length, the width, and the height would be 5. So that's why we can call this 5 cubed, because we are saying 5 times 5 times 5, or you could think about it as finding the volume of a cube, which would be 5 to each side. Now I want to go over a few misconceptions. 2 to the 5th power is not the same thing as 5 squared. Let me show you why. 2 to the 5th power would be 2 times itself, times itself, times itself, times itself, 5 times, okay? Not 2 times 5, but 2 times itself 5 times, okay? So then we got 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16, and 16 times 2 is 32. 5 squared would be 5 times 5. So we're going to say 5 times 5, which is 25. So 2 to the 5th power and 5 squared are not the same thing, and we can see that very easily here. These are not equal because 32 is not equal to 25. Here it is written out again so that you can see 2 to the 5th power is 2 times itself 5 times. Now, notice right here we have 2 times 5. A lot of times, and you can ask your math teachers, I know they've seen it a lot, kids see 2 times 5 and they automatically think, or 2 to the 5th power, and they automatically think 2 times 5. It is not 10. What exponents are repetitive multiplication. Multiplication is repetitive addition, and this is what that shows. Here we have 2 to the 5th power, which is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Here we have 2 times 5, which is 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Totally different problems. Here we're going to get 32, and here we will get 10. These two will not be the same, okay? So don't just think that you're going to say 2 to the 5th power is 10 or 3 to the 5th power is 15. That's not what that means. Exponents are repetitive multiplication, where multiplication is repetitive addition.